Okay, thank you. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's meeting, September 14th. Would you all join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have the full board here tonight. Josh is online, Stan is online, and so is Joel. We have a public meeting call-in number, which is listed on the site with a PIN number. Please feel free to call in with any questions or concerns. First order of business after opening up to the public, I don't see anybody calling in yet. We have meeting minutes from August 20th. Do we have any discussion or motion regarding those minutes?
Actually, before you do that, can we open the public hearing? Or are you going to do that later?
I'll open it right up after these minutes.
Okay,
How's that?
that works.
Make a motion to accept as written.
Do we have a second? I'll second for discussion. Hearing any discussion? Not hearing any discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Josh and Stan and Joel? That's one for Josh. I mean, that was Joel. I don't know if the sound's not up.
There's no.
Try it again.
Yeah, so the sound was turned down, guys. What was your vote on the motion?
You asking for me?
Yes, all of them.
Aye.
Okay.
Stan?
Stan?
Dan was an aye.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, the sound was turned down. We just corrected that. At this point, I'd like to open up a public hearing. We have a public hearing on other business.
Sure. That was opened at 6:36.
So moving on to some updates. First one is, we have this listed as construction. And I assume that's for the safety upgrades?
Yes.
Yes. Spoke to them today. They're actually coming up this week to meet with Ruth Ellen and I and go to each building and go over everything that's being done. The glass has been ordered, but there is a long lead time on it. But they figure the job they're finishing up now should take about 2 weeks. So they're figuring about October 1st, right around there, will be the start time here. But we're meeting with them because we got to get the logistics down for Henry Wilson.
Right.
More than anything.
As far as-
And it's not only as far as moving people around, but also where they're going to put all their materials when it gets here, because we don't want to put it in front of the doors, and want to make sure we have safety and all that taken care of. So.
Do we have one of the rooms next to it that we can let them use as a staging area?
We'll see what we can do. That may be somewhat problematic, but we may have to get a little cozy. So.
Yeah.
No problems with them completing by the date it has to be completed for the grant.
No problem.
Okay.
Anyone else with any questions regarding the construction? And their time to complete, total time they think is going to be how long?
Well, Henry Wilson will take the longest. They figure a couple weeks there, but the rest, if they have the equipment and the glass there, it's maybe a week each.
So maybe a
I'll
month,
verify all that this week.
like a
with them.
month total elapsed
Yeah.
time. Good. Next, we have roof repair updates.
Spoke with Jeff today. The we're debating on what roof can be done first, because what they had to do was they had to secure a contractor on a Saturday to vacuum the roof of the high school, to vacuum all that up.
Yep.
They don't want to do that during the week. It's gonna be too
Right.
loud. So they were able to secure one for a week from Saturday to do the roof, but they don't want to leave the roof uncovered without gravel on it, because they
Potential leaks,
Right.
they're concerned.
right.
Even though
So
there may not be any, but they're concerned.
right.
Yeah.
So they're kind of hinting that they want to do the Farmington, the high school first, and then maybe Henry Wilson. But I stressed to them that from the beginning, we told them I want to do Henry Wilson first because they needed more work, or they needed to work quicker than the high school. So
But
if they can move that contractor to a different Saturday, which I don't know they can, they're going to get back to me tomorrow.
Now, our concern with Henry Wilson was the amount of work and being done in a timely manner?
I think it's because they had
It's
the
more the fact
leak.
that we've had active leaks.
Yeah, we have leaks
So-
going on there, so that was the whole idea was to get that done first.
I mean, not that we want a drought, but it has at least helped that with no rain, nothing's coming through the ceiling.
So we start the roofs.
And then, what is the time to complete the high school if we were to, say, allow that? Is it a 2-week lead time, 2 weeks? Or-
Well, once they get the rocks off, they can start working on it right away. So they're ready to go.
Yeah, well, I think you guys can work it out. Yeah, I saw some emails going back, seemed like you were getting everybody pointed in the right direction.
Let's try.
I didn't feel a need to wade in. The third one is technology, two-step authentication.
Yes, we have been, or I say we, Jen has been working on the two-step authentication and authorization with the company that is providing that to us, making sure that we can get that deployed. We also have we're looking at some pieces with our Wi-Fi. We have done a tremendous amount of work, but as we have come to everybody in and remoting, we are looking at some hiccups that have been along the way. There were some pieces that we had intended to be finished before we were back from remote. As we came in a little bit earlier than we'd anticipated, we're still making sure that we've got as many pieces in place as we can. We have set up an internet failover connection, which has helped tremendously. Last week, we had to bring things down and no one noticed because it worked exactly as it was supposed to. Jen has been working on setting up load balances so that we have balance between the two circuits to make sure that we have fewer issues.
This is regarding our,
Wireless across the district.
okay.
We have increased from 100 megabytes to 1 gig. 1 gig is still probably less than we need to do, but we also are working on the infrastructure behind it to make sure that with our load balancing, we can handle it. It's not just a matter of increasing bandwidth, because your bandwidth is only going to be as fast as your slowest piece of infrastructure. She's been working on the wireless infrastructure overhaul at Henry Wilson and the SAU. We have installed voice over IP phone systems in all locations. And we've got the main ISP circuit changed out days before the kids got back in. We are still in the process of finishing that wireless overhaul project. The phone system is running over the network. We have new card access as well, which has been important for our security. We've done a rush schedule to make sure that our PA systems are up and running before the kids got back so that we had full communications across the buildings. But there are still some pieces that have been a little up and down. And we appreciate the fact that a number of our families have reached out and said, yep, it's a little bouncy. Yes, we understand that, and we are working very quickly to get that corrected. We also have a network that was not necessarily designed to be bringing everybody full-on screens up, remoting in both directions, live streaming all at once. We are looking at some pieces where if we have students who are in class, the teacher is remoting out, has live stream going on, but if the students are in front of her, screens don't necessarily need to all be up across the room and also live streaming at the same time. They can be looking at the screen behind her. So those are some pieces that we're still working through the logistics and what the load balancing will look like.
Regarding the key card access, that's 100% functional, everyone's got one that needs one and is properly trained?
We have, I believe, most of them in. I don't know that everyone, including our brand-new teachers, have them, but we're in the process of getting those out. The ones that are out are fully functional, and we are making sure that those in opposite buildings also have access here if we need to get kids undercover.
Police department?
Certainly, yeah, I know that the SRO has. I don't know that the others do.
Okay, we're gonna need those in the cars.
Yeah.
If we have an active shooter, they need to access the building, and
And to take time for the Knox boxes, time.
So if that's the case, and then the PD is going to have to determine for us how many they need and how they're signed, and then that needs to be given back to us.
Yep.
How they're issued,
Right.
how many they have, and so when we need to go, hopefully on an annual basis, audit to make sure they still have them all
Right.
and they haven't been lost or misplaced.
typically they're locked on the cruiser, and as part of your cruiser checklist, they're checked every shift to make sure it's there.
Okay.
They do have the bigger key on the front bumper,
Yeah.
but that kind of causes a little bit more cost in the end result.
Yeah, so whatever they're using for a policy, but I guess you need to reach out to them and say, hey,
I will do
this,
that.
how many of these do you need? And please let us know how they're going to be issued and
Absolutely.
tracked.
Got a question?
Go ahead.
For the technology, when the internet service went out to bid, there was a gig for the school buildings and a separate feed for the SAU. Is that the way it ended up going? Does because at one time I asked about a VPN going into the SAU. Why couldn't we combine that bandwidth to all our buildings? What was the final design on that?
Meaning whether it's
Jen, do you want to jump in?
two trunks, or was it one with the VPN for the?
It was
SAU?
two trunks coming in.
Is that what it was?
So the SAU has been combined onto the main network,
So did
and
we?
we also set up, there's a firewall, and we're setting up now an additional circuit that comes in for load balancing with the SAU. We wanted to finish that though when the wireless overhaul at the SAU is completed first before we move the firewall over, so that we can have the additional load balancing. And that's one of the things we're working on at the middle school with the SAU, is we're doing the wireless overhaul, then we'll pull the firewall that does the VPN and the additional circuit for load balancing there.
So there was $33,000 for service at the SAU. Has that been combined or moved over to the school side, or did we not expend that $33,000 under that bid?
So we have the main circuit from First Light. For the E-rate, we did the main circuit from First Light. That's the entire district, SAU and everything. But we have a failover from Atlantic Broadband. Two of the circuits are free, that are the municipal ones, with the town agreement, and they come in, and that's what we have for two of the buildings, and I've been tapping into that free connection. And then we have, and they're all through cable. So it's a cable connection that's coming in, and we have that for the SAU that we're going to use for load balancing there.
I'm aware of the MetroCast line, and I'm aware that we cranked up our school buildings to the 1 gig, but we also had an allocation for the SAU with two separate contracts, one for our school and one for the SAU. I believe the cost of the SAU might have been around $33,000, but I'm pulling numbers off the back of my head. So has the $33,000 been expended, or is it sitting in the budget somewhere? And is that something that we can use to feed our normal buildings if it wasn't expended? Or do we need that bandwidth?
I'll have to go back and look at that line specifically, Tim. I know that part of that was combined, and so I believe that at least a portion of that could be used, but I need to go back and make sure that I'm
Right,
looking at it
'cause
correctly.
there was one contract with two separate
Yep.
lines. One line was for the SAU.
Right.
And one line was for our general buildings.
And then we had talked about combining those two. And I believe that is what happened, so I need to go back and look to see, because it was budgeted before we made the change.
Exactly.
Yep. The other thing that I do want to mention under technology, we do have some parent help sessions for those parents who are looking for some support with Google, so that they understand Google Classroom, understand helping their students get in. Our curriculum coordinator, Misty McBriarty, will be hosting those. There was one this afternoon, there's one tomorrow, and there's another one on Wednesday, and we can repeat these again next week if that's helpful. The links for those are out on the district Facebook page. They've also been sent home by the principals to families. And if you need any help with that, let us know. Misty's email address
So
is
the
on there
parents are
too.
notified by a handout to the students and Facebook page. That's the two
And
modes.
and a message went home via email and phone, I believe.
Okay, good. Good, so four different modes of trying to communicate to parents if they
I
need
can't
assistance.
verify that a paper went home at the high school, but,
Right,
okay.
so they have
But at least.
email, voice message, communication to the student, and Facebook.
Right.
What have you had for attendance so far, people signing up?
It's not a sign up, it's a drop in. We
Okay.
didn't have anyone actually take advantage of that today. I believe the one tomorrow is at 10 a.m. and the one on Wednesday is at 6:30 p.m. We're trying to spread out the times so that it makes it more accessible for folks. And if there's a time that works better, please let us know and we can see what we can schedule.
Okay. Anything else on technology from anybody else?
I do.
Go ahead, Tim.
Are any of our main offices in the buildings closed to students?
I don't know that I understand what you mean by close to
A
students.
student needs to go to the office. Are they allowed to go to the office in all our schools?
My understanding is that they are.
Okay. Is the Pledge of Allegiance being recited at the high school?
I've not been here in the mornings.
Okay. My understanding is not. My understanding is children aren't allowed into the main office because we don't have the spit shields in place.
They are now.
They are now, okay.
Yep.
Well, as of this morning, the pledge wasn't being recited.
Okay, that's not okay.
And if we have the technology, and I don't know whether it's in this building, to go over the PA system from any,
Any classroom,
Room?
pick it up and go.
that's crazy.
So we will make sure that happens.
That's something we do in every school, but it's Pledge of Allegiance every morning. Good.
Should be.
Hopefully, we're continuing with
It's a
that.
state law.
It's state law. It's required.
It's pesky rules and laws.
Nothing pesky about it. We'll do it.
Next on the transportation.
Transportation, we're waiting to hear back from service. I spoke with Lynn today. She's reached out to the service department at DePrizio's
Yeah.
and
They haven't
hasn't
heard
heard
back
back yet.
Okay.
So
It was short notice,
it was.
but yeah, that, we'll wait to see what their assessment of it.
Okay.
But that bus is currently at the Prezio's?
It is at DePrizio's.
Okay. School procedures AM.
So for mornings, we have cut down considerably on time to get kids into the building. Things are going better, but I do want to remind parents that the screeners that are sent out electronically, if you're sending in a paper copy with your student, that's fine. But if you are doing this electronically, we do ask if there's any possible way for you to do that by 7 o'clock so that we can have those lists ready to go at the doors to speed up that process. We still have students each morning who are arriving without, and there will shortly come a point where we will have to send students home if they are continuing to come in without. So we ask for your assistance there.
So when these students don't have their checklist filled out, whether electronically or on paper, is there a holding area for them
Yes.
to be at? Okay.
Yeah.
Until that's resolved.
It is.
And-
And right now, they've been primarily outside or in a large area, so the gym. As weather gets a little bit less conducive, we want to make sure that we have smaller numbers so that we can get kids in and get it taken care of. Obviously, everyone has a morning, some
Right.
mornings, and that happens. We'll work with people, but if it's, we're going on day 4 and hasn't been filled out yet, we really need you to do that.
What's our percentage of
It's been going down. I didn't get numbers today. On
guesstimate?
Friday, we only had, I think, 1 from 7th and 8th grade. There were probably 20 or so from the high school.
Okay.
Numbers had been going down, but we need them to continue to go down.
I can fix that with a motion, starting next Monday. Let's make a policy that the first offense is a warning, second offense is they're going to do a week of remote, and third offense is they're full-time remote. Takes 2 minutes to do the paper.
Well, I don't know if I'm ready to do that, but it's certainly something we can do if it doesn't get corrected in a timely manner.
Just
It,
make the system go smoother. It's slow in the morning, trying to get everybody through, that just interferes with the process.
But if we instituted that policy today, what other potential problems would that cause down the line?
They've got a week to come up to speed and learn the process if they need help.
Oh, day 4. One more day, it'll be a week. Please update us next week on it,
absolutely. Okay.
because, maybe Tim's discussion will be,
Pick back up.
yeah. Sooner or later, we may have to establish a policy, so it might be in the next week that you say, okay, if we can't get some people to be more successful, what are we going to put in for policy?
Right.
So you may come back to us and say, okay, this is maybe something we're ready to consider, and these are how we feel we should approach making sure people are getting it done.
And then the only other update as far as building logistics, I know it's we didn't have it here. I did give the board a list of numbers for classrooms. We are looking at having some parents, now that we've had a few days in, saying, okay, my kid's coming back. In fact, some of them have kind of just shown up on the doorstep without necessarily a whole lot of warning. And we haven't told kids they can't come in, but we do have some classrooms that our numbers are getting very, very close for us to be able to maintain 3-foot distancing.
So I think what we're going to need for additional information is, what is the, maximum classroom size for that class? Because you just say like 2 to max, 3 to max, 0 to max.
So that's how many more desks we can fit in there and
Right.
maintain 3-foot distancing.
Right, but say if you just take one of them that says it's a grade 5, there's 0 that's
Right.
available, what is the potential in that classroom if it was full in? And what is the
Well, it
number
means
seated
that
now?
if we're full in, we can't maintain 3-foot distancing, but I understand you want
But
those
is it
other
one more
numbers.
person or is it 5 more people in that situation? That's
Okay.
my question, because.
So you want how many students are remote currently for that
Right.
class?
We have a classroom size that has a determined number of desks. We have so many students in it, and we have so many students that possibly could need to come into that. So if we have that, then we could quickly say, or at least narrow this down, says, okay, there's 3 of them here, in all likelihood, that you have 0 spaces and you have 7 more kids. That's
Okay.
versus
Understood.
you've got one that has 2 and there's only 3 possible.
Right.
So it's going to flag, it would flag those ones that are more likely to become over-occupied right away,
Right.
and maybe say, okay, if these are the ones that are going to be over capacity, how, because you might boil it down to like 5.
Well, so I
And
can,
then what can we do about those 5?
Right.
That are the most likely to become over capacity based upon how many people are there, how many people could want to come back, and based upon what's there. I mean, this is helpful, but
as we're looking at, for instance, 8th grade, I have one classroom with one desk left down at the bottom of that page. Of the 3 8th grade homerooms, I have one space left if another 8th grader comes in, and then I'm up against no longer maintaining 3-foot distance.
Right.
We'll get you those numbers.
yeah, so that'll kind of, I think that'll point to some of the rooms that are more concerned.
Mr. King,
Go ahead, Joel.
Ms. Vaughn, I was just looking at some of the numbers per grade level. In 8th grade, you used 8th grade for an example, there's 3 classrooms there are 3 8th grade teachers currently, is that correct?
Yes.
So we have some vacant classrooms at this point, logistically.
Yes, there is one. And so my issue there is having someone to put in with the students. Yes, we can spread them out, then I need that, yeah. Then I need an adult. Yep.
It just seems like a low number to me for some reason.
Right. No, I understand that, but, so then that means that with that other classroom, I have to have someone in the space with them. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
What
I'll get those updated and I'll put them in your folder tomorrow.
Tim?
What happened to the discussion when we were talking about coming in with restrictions versus remote? At one point in time, there was a discussion that if you're going remote, you're going remote for one term. Where are we with that, and do we need that?
We had talked about doing that. At this point, in several discussions that I've had with various folks across the state, being able to, saying to a parent, you can't do, you must do for this amount of time, if they insist, it may not hold up well. And so, because of parental right, if I say I want my kid in, my kid's in. We can certainly make a suggestion, we'd like you to stay this long. And for the most part, people have been very accommodating when we've said, okay, this is what we can do and this is where we're stretched. But I want to make sure that if that's a mandate that's made, that doesn't come from here, that's board policy.
Yeah, I wanted to be flexible myself because situations change for parents and students, but we can't be people changing their mind every other day either. The other thought I had is some of these classrooms that are going to come up with, say, in the red zone, as far as occupancy. I mean, things we need to look at is, can the room be laid out differently? Can some of the objects that are not being used removed from it? Because I'm just putting out a couple thoughts. Some of the things in classrooms may not be utilized all the time and may be taking up some space to allow some of the distancing. The other thing is there also another classroom that could be swapped out for those classrooms that are in the red zone or potentially have an occupancy permit limits?
Right.
So it's just a couple of thoughts because when you look at those, fill in the rest of those numbers, I think the ones that are going to hit first, as far as running out of space, it's going to be pretty glaring, based upon how many potential students you have left coming back versus how many are there, and what you have for room.
We have, as we're looking particularly for grades 7 and 8, because we're trying to maintain the cohorts and they're already changing classes, so we're trying to keep them in one part of the building. If we can. The classes are more or less the same size, so swapping that out doesn't give us an awful lot. We have today moved out file cabinets, said, okay, these have got to go, we're putting in another desk. But there comes a point where we can't take out everything. Right. But that is something that we have certainly looked at and are doing. So.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting until we can get back to full occupancy. Because if we have spare classrooms, that's another option, but that has a personnel component. It also has to be addressed. Or classrooms that are too big into other areas, whether it's gymnasium or whatever. I mean, maybe that's maybe a rescheduling of that space in some of these cases, I don't know.
But we also have gym classes that have to meet somewhere. Right now, weather's good, they're outside.
Okay. Next under old business, we have custodian incentives. Larry's here with us. I don't know where you came up with this. I know we had a potential candidate that was,
I'm bringing it
Okay.
forward tonight.
and it's on our agenda, so I guess what your thoughts are.
Well, you had asked me to put it
Yep.
there, so
Okay.
it's there.
So it wrapped up with basically what my discussion was, considering a hiring incentive to basically get some either part-time people in. I mean, one of the things that Tim mentioned was being able to pay a higher rate on a part-time position based upon not having to pay some benefits that would currently now. I don't know what you guys done as far as rolling with that thought process between those two ideas.
We've looked at it. I did have a conversation with the attorney that represents the custodial bargaining unit. And she was going to review board tapes and take a look and see what her understanding was going back over the contract as well. Again, it's certainly board purview.
So, assuming that we may be able to get to full staffing with full hires, where do we stand? I assume we still have a need for additional hands on deck, whether they're full-time people, part-time people,
Wanna
or
come up to the
outside
mic?
contractors to do what we need to do. So I guess I'm kind of looking to see where you guys are at with that and what you have for us to consider. Go ahead, Larry. Tell us how you're going to solve your problems. Because we're trying to help you.
Understood.
Or you could just work double shifts 7 days a week.
Can I go back to hourly?
Yep. Yep.
Done.
You might not like the rate, but go ahead.
Oh, wait a minute, you were talking about a higher rate.
Who thinks you're going part-time?
Retirement. As far as like the day shift, we definitely need help on the day shift. One person just isn't going to be able to keep up with everything during the day that
Yeah.
we have scheduled. So,
If we hire tonight, where's that person going?
second shift at the high school, that's where the opening is. Right now, there's only 2 here at night, so they're getting strapped. If we're doing the complete spraying every single night, then yeah, I'd need at least, if we can't get one for each shift for each school, then, maybe if we could get 2 extra at night, and we could bounce them around a little bit to help out. But,
So if we were able to, say if we posted for part-time janitorial staff, say at 30 hours a week, at an increased rate, because it's part-time without benefits, how many would 2, so it sounds like 2 or 3,
3 for the day shift.
You're looking at one more
One.
person during the day.
1 person at each school during the day.
Extra than what we have now, okay.
Because right now we have one
We
on
have
during
one
the day.
person at each school during the day right now that's taking care of bathrooms, classrooms, when they're, especially Valley View, when they're when kindergarten and preschool comes back, once they move out of the room, it's gonna have to go in and be disinfected again, or sprayed.
Now,
Lunches,
right,
like at Henry Wilson, you're having not only in the cafeteria, but multi-purpose room.
And here it's CAF and and
Caf-
gym.
Yeah.
so you haven't had any luck with responses back from outside cleaning services?
We have not.
No.
So, and temp agencies have said they don't have any people to send us.
Correct. And other districts, Brian has checked with other
I
districts.
had 2 group meetings with other districts in the state last week, and they're all in the same boat that we're in, as far as not finding people and outside agencies or violation of a CBA, if they were. But still, nobody out there is saying that they are having an easy time finding anybody.
Tim?
Brian, what's the federal cutoff where we're mandated to provide insurance? Is it 30 hours under Obamacare?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if we're going to hire part-time, it would have to be at 28 hours.
Or 29.
28.
It doesn't come out evenly.
I don't see any reason why we wouldn't want to post for, say, 3 part-time positions initially. It's not like if we posted, if we get more than that, we can consider more than that. Post for 3 part-time positions, and whatever we feel it could be an increased rate due to not paying benefits, and I'm okay with a $500 hiring bonus.
Are you looking at these to be daytime?
I think we need the bodies. I'm not gonna tell you where you're gonna put them, because you may changing, you may,
We may, depending on how it works out, we could even do a split shift.
right. We need bodies, and, if you guys figure out how you wanna move them around, we may advertise for first and second shift, because somebody may come in and say, hey, I can work second. Another person says, I can only work first, and that may be able to juggle around. You may have some existing staff that's willing to work some extra hours that can be structured into a plan backfilled with part-time help. So, that's where I'm comfortable. I'm okay with making a motion. I think I don't see any reason why we'd be in violation of a CBA. I can go through in details. But the fact is, if we're at full staff and we need additional help that's going to be reimbursed, we need to hire the people. We can't close the school down.
Well, and I
Right.
can't say that we're going to be reimbursed in full.
Right.
So,
But either way, we cannot operate the school without having enough
Correct.
staff to basically do the cleaning protocols that we said we're going to do.
correct.
So, and my number is, if we're gonna have a hiring bonus, say if we do $500, they have to have a minimum time of completion, where they have to work here for 6 weeks to get that, whatever seems a reasonable number. Whether it's 8 weeks,
And you mentioned 90 days at
That's
one
usually
point.
90 days.
90 days. But, that's, we have a pay scale, we can factor out what the benefits are. I don't have it in front of me, but I'll make a motion to authorize staff to post for initial 3, I'll say 5 part-time janitorial positions at up to 29 hours per week at an increased rate with a signing bonus of up to $500 after a 90-day employment period.
We'll second that.
Any discussion on the motion? Josh, Stan, Joel?
Nope, I'm okay, ready to vote yes.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 I'm a no.
Joel's a no. You guys are gonna have to put in some of the rates that you may wanna post for, but I think it makes sense to bring that before us, saying, okay, this is the structure of the position, this is the rates, this is the time period.
Are you doing rates based on experience or just here's the rate?
That's something I think that you guys could work out and bring back to us, because if we're gonna be here next week, so you could come back with saying this, we talked about it, and this is what makes sense to fit with our current pay and benefits with our employees, because it has to fit. It can't be just some number. That's why I'm not picking a number, because you'd have to sit down with the rates of pay in our position based upon seniority and experience and look at what a base rate would be and what we would consider as an increase that makes sense, that doesn't completely blow up our current pay scale and benefits, and then say, this is how we plan to structure it based upon your motion. Hopefully, when it comes back, maybe we'll have some candidates to consider.
Well, for me to post it without having discussed rates with you,
I'm okay with you posting a potential rate,
okay.
because you can post a potential rate of $13 to $17. But if you have a finalized
Okay.
rate that comes back to us and said, this is what we're proposing,
Okay.
and this is the maximum for somebody with experience, and this is the minimum with somebody no experience, and these are the reasons why, then we can validate that, then you can
Okay.
make an offer past that. I mean, it's kind of together, but
Okay.
you need to get it advertised, you need to get potential candidates here, and within that time frame, we can resolve the official pay, benefits, compensation, as far as that
Well, and
hiring
you said there was no benefits, it's
Right, but,
rolled
yeah.
into, okay.
pay, the compensation, say if we have a hiring bonus, how that's going to be paid out, what the terms of they're going to need to complete to get that. Like say, okay, you need to work 90 days, but you need to work most of those 90 days. You can't show up on the first day and the last day, so there's some logistics that need to get factored in there. And unless you guys get some other way that we can deal with this in the short term. It doesn't sound like we have the amount of staff that's going to be able to pick up what we need to do in overtime. It's not even close.
It's just gonna burn everybody out if we try to cover it all with overtime.
Yeah.
But has that been put out, Larry? We made shifts available to our existing staff on,
I've offered overtime. I've told
Okay.
people that like right now, that if they need to stay to get extra work done, it's authorized for them to stay. If we
Okay.
need help to come in
Right.
early or something, and if somebody's
Yeah,
available.
I mean, ideally, it needs to be the first thing, like, so you guys have first
Yeah.
say. We'll try to backfill with some, but our employees have first say. If they can work the extra hours, yeah.
yeah, if a custodian wants to do 3 days a week, an extra 3 hours per day, and that's going to help us get to where we need to be in our cleaning structure, I'd like to see that, or like to have them understand in that plane, then fill in what we can't fill with the part-time help.
Yep.
My other comment on the hiring is, I agree we got to do it. I'd like somebody looking at the books to say, hey, this is where we're going to find the money to do it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Just so it's now and versus 6 months from now.
Because there may be a cap on that says, okay, this is what you want to do, but logistically, we can only put this much funds to it.
right.
Or it's okay, it's going to be this is what if we can do this, this is the cost, this is the rate we can expend it, and we have it available, and we could earmark it,
We
or
can
we
do
don't
for
have
this many
that
days,
available.
right.
Brian will have that figured out before us. Won't finish this morning coffee.
For the end of the night, I was hoping.
Yeah, because they're not working on changing teacher contracts or anything.
24 hours in a day, and Friday's 72 hours long.
Your mouth to God's ear. Sounds good.
Friday is just 2 days till Monday.
I guess another question is, Larry, as far as, and I understand your salary, but beyond your 40 hours, what's your average work week in hours?
An average,
Yeah. As we're open.
it varies.
Yeah. I mean, is it 48? Is it above 48, below
Usually
48?
About 48,
Yeah, you're usually running at least 50 to 55,
yeah.
and that's on a good week.
Well, they're all good weeks.
Yeah.
It's on vacation.
Moving on to under new business, I know we've probably got a couple things here. The only thing we've got listed was a donation acceptance on a drone project.
Yes. So we have a donation that came into the SAU. The donor wishes to remain anonymous. but is offering a matching donation to what Mr. Brown had mentioned at our last meeting. So the amount is for $1,200. And it is an amount that is over what I am allowed to just accept on behalf of the district, therefore it needs to come to the board.
So I would make a motion to.
Motion to accept.
I will second. I got beat to it. Motion by Joel, seconded by Josh.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
Go ahead.
The way our student activity funds are set up, can that cash donation go into a student activity? Mine can't because it's coming out of Fund 10, but can the outside donation go in there?
Let me double check. My first is I don't think it can, but let me double check that.
So I assume, Joel, in your motion is to accept the $1,200 for the drone project?
Accept and expend.
Yes,
Right.
okay.
And under $5,000, you can accept to expend.
Right.
So I don't know that it's cleaner coming through student activities, but I will double check that.
Just want to see one or two things, either the money spent by the end of the fiscal year so we don't lose it,
Oh, yeah.
or if you can establish a student activity fund, whereas next year you need extra batteries and they cost $100 a piece, you have what you
Some
didn't spend
latitude.
in that student activity to continuously support that
Well,
project.
And I think as we're going into budget season, we certainly would need to look at making sure we've budgeted for that project as well, so that it doesn't
Yeah.
get lost. But that's a good thought.
Okay.
We did hear from the auditor on yours, and the IRS is basically saying no, because the IRS gets the taxes out of it. So the auditor won't allow us to do it that way.
Government wants their money. In other words.
That's fine. I'll donate the cash. It's crazy, but I'll donate the cash.
I agree.
So that's probably going to, if Tim's going to do it out of pocket, then that's going to probably have to come back to us as another donation, right?
It would, yes.
That's fine.
So
I'll have
let
it
me
next
know
week.
when.
I'll have it next Monday.
Okay, I will put it on next Monday's agenda.
So on getting back to the motion, which is motion and second, and any other discussion? Not hearing any discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Does any other board have any other new business?
Got a question on nursing. Has anything changed with our policies on students going to the nurses? So if a student's not feeling well during the day and it's not a life-threatening emergency and it's not COVID-related, are they allowed to go to the nurse?
Yes.
Okay. Again, I'm being told otherwise.
Okay.
And if there's a justifiable reason for that, then we need to look at, can a kiddo come to school with over-the-counter medication? If we're not opening the nurse up to that, there's a...
Yeah, liability-wise, I don't think we want to go there. Yeah.
I think there's more of a, from what I've seen, the memos is more of a screening process before they go down there, just to limit exposure. If it's something that they can deal with in the classroom,
Limit exposure for who?
for going in down the hallway.
Oh, okay.
and everything. So,
Or if the nurse has someone who is
Someone else in there.
potentially symptomatic, to have someone else come in, they do ask that they call first, but I'll certainly look into it.
Well, it may be the intended case, but maybe some misunderstanding of staff of
It's possible.
how it's supposed to be operating.
And it may be that during morning screening, as the nurse is helping getting kids in the door, I'm not sure what timing is either that you've run into, Tim, so happy to talk specifics later if we need to.
Okay, anyone else with new business?
I have two. One is just kind of by way of public announcement. We have, in conjunction with the police department, there is a bicycle safety contest that is taking place for third graders. Students are encouraged to submit their best representation of bike safety tips, either in writing or as a drawing. And entries will be judged by a panel of school and community officers. There are 25 bicycle helmets that will be distributed. And the grand prize, we have 2, one girl's bike and one boy's bike. These are 18-inch bicycles, and they include removable training wheels. For those who don't need the training wheels, off they come.
Nice.
So we are asking that all entries are dropped off either in the Valley View main office or at the Farmington Police Department by next Tuesday, the 22nd at noon.
Now, how are the parents of the third graders being notified?
This is going out to parents. It's gone home with kids this way. It's going out in their Google Classrooms because this is certainly open to remote students as
Yeah.
well. It will be in the newsletter that goes home, and it will be up on the website as well.
Now, do we have email contacts for the parents of those? We could add that to
Oh, yeah. Mr. McGurty sends home
Okay, as long as
email
we could add that
pieces
to the
Yep.
list, so hopefully a parent will hear it and
And
say.
I know he's already put it on the Valley
The
View
last thing you'd
Facebook
want
page
is
as well.
a parent to say, hey,
I didn't even know about it.
I didn't know
Right.
about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The other two things on our school educational cable channel, do we have tickers that go across that we can have that put on while they're doing their reruns and whatever runs during the day?
I will hand it to him.
And my,
There is a regular emergency thing about it. I'll look into how it's done for tickering.
Okay.
But there is an emergency broadcast here.
Okay. There's an emergency broadcast, but he's going to look to see how he can do a ticker.
okay, what's my other question? Oh, do we have the ability to isolate the third grade class and do a telephone call specific to them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I'd like to see the telephone call too,
Absolutely.
because that's probably our
Best way to
biggest
get
bang for the
everybody.
buck of the parents hearing
Right.
what's going on.
Good.
And then the other piece that I had is more planning ahead, but wanting to let the board know. With the voting on November 3rd, which will be the national election, the town has asked if there's any way they can come in and set up on the 2nd during the day, because setup is going to be potentially more involved than it was for the primary. They're anticipating a very large turnout for the 3rd, and because they expect that it will go late, they're asking if they can come in and do the cleaning on the 4th, which would mean we have 3 days that the high school would potentially need to be remote for that election. I mean, we can certainly do that, but I wanted to let the board know that that is a strong possibility, because by that time, I'm not going to have necessarily the option to have gym classes outside. I already have classes in the cafeteria. I have lunches that meet there. Not sure logistically how else, unless everything is, I'll use air quotes, normal by November. And if it is, then this becomes a moot point.
It won't be.
Will be.
So. And I'm happy to let folks know ahead, this is 3 days that we would likely be all remote, but.
It may be a good idea for everyone concerned, because it is going to be very busy. Logistics are going to be concerned for them to do the election with additional protocols they're going to have to do. So Monday to me is reasonable, and Wednesday is also reasonable, because it's going to be a late day, and to put that expectation that we're going to be ready to go the next day is going to put a pretty big burden on
Everybody.
everybody.
Yeah.
Might be more cost effective to get a cleaning company in here during the day than it is on midnights as well.
I think that's a big part of it.
My only concern with that, and I don't have any issues with it, is right now in the Chromebooks, we have some charger issues.
Yeah.
So Chromebooks went out without the chargers, so that's going to have to be resolved by then.
Most of those have been at this point, if
Okay.
they've reached out and said anything to us.
Yep. The other thing is going full remote, and it's actually a good drill, but how many of the students that we have within the high school are going to need access to a remote device during that time period? So,
They've all been issued Chromebooks now.
but the Wi-Fi's, the
hotspot?
MiFi's, hotspots, do we have them in stock? When are we going to get them out? How are we going to get them out? And do we have enough?
We have additionals now. We would certainly need to do a quick poll and could do
Yep.
so of those who are in to say,
As,
when we do this, what does this look like for you?
yeah. And that's good to know, because if we have to go to a planned shutdown,
We're
we're
going to
going to have
have to.
those numbers. And hopefully it'll be after that,
Yep.
if it's going to happen than before.
Barrington faced it today,
Yep.
so.
So what was the issue at Barrington today?
A number of students tested positive, and so they're closed for the remainder of the week.
And they're closed for the rest of the week to determine.
They're remote. They're remote for the rest of the week.
Remote for the rest of the
yes.
week to determine the potential
In wor-
contact.
In working with with DHHS, and I suspect that the students had been tested, now that they've tested positive, they said everybody is remote, that the way it was announced in the paper, it would allow them to finish the quarantine process, because I imagine the ones who were tested here, got results back maybe 4 or 5 days later, and now another 5 to 7 days will give them the full quarantine period. I haven't spoken with the superintendent. He had a few other things to deal with
Yeah.
today, but
No, I was just curious, based upon the time being out, how are they dealing as far as quarantine, as far as testing? This kind of brings me into one of my new businesses. Some of the colleges have required testing for students even to go to school. I know they were using some outside services. Name escapes me who they were using. I think we should, maybe you've already got the information, if we need to do substantial testing, how would we go about it? Who would we get the kits from? Because say if we have a student that tests positive, so we have to take those cohorts and put them out. Minimum, say it's a 3-day period for them to get tested, or out for the 14 days. And how are we going to accomplish that testing? I know we've reached out to one of our firms in the area.
I've reached out to a couple of them that we have kind of that, I can make a phone call and get the ball rolling. What I understand from DHHS is that it's not so much on us to say, line up and we'll test you, as is DHS will say, and here are your options for being tested. Certainly, there's nothing that says that we can't be proactive. We also need to look then at what our involved costs will be then.
Yeah, because I know that, I'm trying to think of one of the colleges up north, Plymouth State.
Yes.
They had a requirement, and they actually sent a test home with every student, and they would send it in and get the results back before they could attend.
Right.
I mean, whether or not that makes sense for us, but based upon the availability and the cost for testing, is that something we can at least be, say if we had a situation and we could say, okay, we're going to have, say if there's a concern, teachers want to get tested, these are 2 options.
Okay.
There's a test here that we have that you can take and get the results on an expedited basis, or go here. Hopefully those options are something that we can plug into our reopening plan to be prepared for. Say if we have somebody that, it's not inconceivable between here and Christmas that we have a student or staff test positive.
Oh, not at all.
So
Not at all.
thinking forward, how are we going to go about that besides our current policy, but also getting some kids back into school sooner than later,
Right.
because they've been out 3 days, they've been tested, they can be back in, because it may also be important for staff, because if you have, say I have a group that's now saying, okay, you're out for this period of time, we may have some staff that we would like to, if they're able to, because they tested and are negative, to come back to assist teaching other students.
Right.
And
so we'll have to look to see if we're administering the test or if we are facilitating their going here.
Yeah.
I don't know if we will have the capacity to actually provide the testing, but we'll
Yeah.
have to look into it, because I can't test somebody.
Right, but
And
I
have
think in Plymouth
3
State, they
nurses.
contracted with somebody, and that
Right.
company handed out the tests to all the students.
Right.
And they said, get them out, and it was almost successful, except the tests weren't flagged as urgent, and they never got the results back before they had to be in attendance. So a lot of those students had to stand in line
Again,
for 6 hours to get a test before they could go to college, so.
I know UNH is building their own labs to do work down. They're going to do it in-house, but still their turnaround time is not that quick. And we looked at them to contract to them for Oyster River staff, and it was averaging $120 per test.
Yeah, see, that cost is, from what I've heard, that's like an expedited test, and,
Well, and then the problem too is the expedited tests have a higher false positive rate,
so.
which means the second test has to come, which is
Yeah.
another $120.
Do you want it?
So-
Do you want it quick or do you want it right?
So along those lines, I know the district for students opened up flu shots. Is that same thing available to staff as well?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. I stand in line every year. Yep. I get my flu shot at the nurse's office. Our line will be longer this year, socially distanced.
Or they could come to you,
They could.
no line.
That's true.
So, and the other one I had was, based upon a discussion at last meeting regarding some contracts, kind of slept on it, and I'd like to make a motion to have staff prepare a draft RFP for outside legal services for the next meeting and furnish before Friday night the current legal contract in the Google folder.
I'll second that.
I think it's a good opportunity to look for, see what else is out there. We may end up being right where we're at, but. Any other discussion on the motion? Awful quiet out there.
Tim, you seconded, correct?
I did.
Thank you.
Hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. No.
That was Stan. Stan was a no. Okay.
I didn't get Joel.
There was 2 yeses and a no.
Okay.
I believe the no was Stan.
I didn't hear Joel say yes, that's all.
It
Okay.
was kind of unison. Wasn't quite a barbershop quartet, but it was, you know.
Close.
That's the only thing I have. You guys have anything for new business?
The only other thing is, did you,
Oh, okay, we finished up the public hearing.
okay.
I do, for new business.
Okay.
School elections are for class officers are next week. And one of the things that this board hasn't had in quite a while is student representation, even though our policies allow for it. I'd like to see a discussion and have the discussion brought back to the board. Try to get one of the senior school officers, and even if it has to be on a rotating basis. And if we can't do it within the senior class, then roll that out around our whole high school with our officers. I think there's a total of 16. And get them to do a meeting here and there and communicate amongst all 16 so everybody's kind of on the same page of what's going on the board level. But that'll give us, I think, probably a better student representation of the board if you encompass everybody. But I'd like to see for the public sessions, which I think is the only thing that we have them involved in, I'd like to see student input, because I think it's important to this, you know, it's important to what we do.
Okay.
It's okay to me.
I mean, that
So, I
doesn't,
mean,
that doesn't, because the board already, your policies allow for it, I don't know that it requires a motion, but
no, but
that's my
I'd
question.
kind of like you to, you know, I'm looking for your feedback. I'd kind of like you to have that internal discussion to see if it can work, and
Of course.
go back to the kids and see if it's something, you know, we won't know till next week, but see if it's something they're willing to do. And from what I've heard in the past is you might have a student that's playing basketball that doesn't want to do it because they're playing basketball. Well, if there's an alternate and they can work amongst a bigger pool of them, then we'll probably have a better shot at getting participation.
Okay, we can certainly look at it. So you're looking at then having the existing class officers rotate through rather than having the students elect a single representative?
I think with the multiple, I think it would work better versus the single.
And you may not have a,
It does allow for multiple.
What's that?
The statute does allow for multiple.
Yes, it does.
Does, okay.
but you may have out of that pool of people, you may have some that are, hopefully a majority that's willing to participate, that
Right.
they can rotate out.
Yeah, just so it doesn't become a burden on them, but again, the other thing you create is a cross-communication between all those school, school offices, so I
Good.
think it'd be
That's a
kind of
good
neat.
idea. So at this point, I'm going to close our public hearing for the acceptance of unanticipated revenue for the CARES Act of $362,869.23. I've closed the public hearing. Do we need to have a motion?
There
to
needs
accept?
to be a vote, yes.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to accept, and during the
Second.
discussion,
Seconded by Josh.
if you wouldn't mind, I'd just like you to give a brief synopsis to the public of what this money can be used for.
Sure. The CARES Act ESSER funds for schools allow us to recoup just about any expense that is directly related to COVID additional expenses beyond our regular budget. I can't put a teacher I already have in the budget into the ESSER grant. But if I were to need to hire additional staffing because of COVID, I could put that in there. We could potentially put part of a custodian in there. I don't have a lot left, but we could do that. We've looked at it for desk shields. We have used it for Chromebooks. We have used it for hotspots and cots for isolation rooms and additional sprayers for the electrostatic sprayers so that we can clean. By the way, those came in.
The 6 additional units?
Yes.
Good.
So we've had a lot of latitude as what can be written there for expenses, and we are allowed to expense back anything through March 16th that was related to needing to make a grand shift to cover everything. So, did you want more detail than
Oh,
that?
that's fine.
Okay.
So all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Speaking of shields,
Thursday.
You're
They
gonna
should
get
be arriving
how many
Thursday.
additional?
Additional 200.
And you feel that's going to be able to address all the additional needs?
I do.
Okay.
I do. And we've also ordered some extra feet so that we have a little bit more latitude on some of the other
Right.
pieces that we need.
Did Larry need any additional wood blocks?
Not at this time.
Okay. Let me know if you need some.
And so before, I don't know if you had any questions on the opening for principals too, because they are present electronically, but you may not.
I'll open it up to the principals if they have anything, concerns that they feel that they want to bring before the board as far as, say, our reopening plan to date, or things they feel are going real well. So feel free to pipe in if you feel that you would like to.
I would say Diana too.
And Diana. Diana can pipe in by herself. I know she's just speaking right up. Huh?
I think that was Diana.
I think that was Blake.
Oh, is that Blake?
I'm here.
Okay.
Can I just jump in here?
Yes.
Liberty Valley
Yeah.
View Community School?
Yes, go ahead.
Right. Board members, thank you for allowing me to hop on. I just wanted to say real quickly, things have been, I would say, a huge success as we kicked off the school year last week. I think I can speak on all of the staff at Valley View that it's great to see kids back in the building again. The students have done a great job following the restrictions that we have in place. The parents have been extremely supportive. The faculty understatement. It's just a wonderful group of people, and they've created such a great learning environment for the kids. And they've been on their toes had to make changes throughout the day, each and every day. But things have been going very well. And as Mr. Brown pointed out, I think last week, or the last meeting, I should say, our car line, both in the morning and the evening, has been very, very smooth. So each day gets better and better. I want to thank all the parents for, following all of the new procedures that we put in place, and they've done a great job filling out the COVID screeners. If anyone's on tonight and you haven't done that yet, make sure you fill out that COVID screener.
In the morning.
But overall, I think it's been a great experience, and it's just nice to have a little bit of normalcy again back in the schools. And then also, we have some very dedicated teachers that have taken on the remote teaching aspect for Valley View. And, the parents and students have really jumped on, and they've done a great job with the new type of remote learning that we're offering them. So overall, it's been a lot of positives at the Valley View Community School. So thank you.
Good, thank you.
Charlie.
Go ahead, Tim.
Blake, have you experienced any technical issues with your remote learning at Valley View? I know we've had some issues at the middle school, but do you see any areas for improvement or anything that's hampering our remote?
I would say at this point, because it is so early on, we've had some technical issues here or there. Nothing, I would say, that's all that extreme. At this point, I think we're still kind of finding our way and seeing exactly what the remote experience is going to look like for the kids and our teachers. In terms of the teachers getting on and having kids join their Google Meets and that sort of thing, there hasn't been any real issues with that. There have been some kids that have dropped off during a lesson or during their instructional time throughout the day. Sometimes they're able to hop back on. There have been a couple of times where some kids have missed some of the instructional time, but the thing is, the teachers have office hours, which I think are very valuable at the end of the day. So the teachers are able to reconnect with those families and catch those students up on whatever they may have missed. Plus the fact that we have our Google Classrooms and class buildings in place, it also gives the parents and students another area to go and look and make sure that they're keeping up on whatever instructional pieces that happen throughout that Google Meet.
Thank you.
Any other staff?
So, Diana Danito, if I can jump in here.
Go ahead, Diana.
I feel like I was called to speak. So great to have the kids back, so amazing. And I just can't say enough about the faculty and staff at the school district that have just really been able to kind of roll with the punches, be flexible when it's required, be very stringent about the COVID practices that we've put in place. Special education teachers and related services staff, we've been just packing in the meetings because we have to have a special education meeting for every student within the first 30 days of the students returning to school, should the parents wish to have the meeting. Some parents are requesting to delay it, so we're honoring that, but also sending a written notice that they have asked us to do that with a response page as well. I've had parents reaching out, it's been great. It's been fast and furious, but it's certainly been great. We're struggling a little bit flying meetings. We get frozen. We've had some parents that have struggled to get into the meetings. Our meetings are all remote at this point. It's been more convenient to meet that way, but we're making it through. Have had some great conversations about students, so I'm thrilled to see everybody and hope we can sustain it as long as we can.
Okay, thank you.
Matt Casogli from Henry Wilson.
Go ahead,
I'd
Matt.
like to definitely concur what Diana see our dedicated and committed staff going above and beyond has been great to see. Special shout out to our daytime custodian, Nancy, who has just been absolutely amazing. We are so lucky to have her helping us and supporting us along the way. Our students have been tremendous, following the new protocols and expectations. Just really a positive opening overall. I guess my two main concerns right now is definitely the Wi-Fi. We definitely took a hard hit at Henry Wilson with the Wi-Fi. I'm, spending a lot of my time putting out some fires with parents who are unhappy, with their child not being able to connect consistently throughout the day. And then also I do have some safety concerns. We have a new drop-off and pickup procedure at Henry Wilson, which the operation of it has gone very smoothly. However, for whatever reason, we continue to have quite a few parents ignoring the procedures and dropping their children or picking their children up on side streets or the parking lot across the street from Henry Wilson, which is presenting to be unsafe as we have students walking and weaving in and out of traffic, both cars and buses. So, to our community, if we could just all work together and support Henry Wilson's new drop-off and pickup procedures, as it's ultimately for the safety of our students. But other than those two, things are going really well. And again, the staff has really stepped up to the plate, and our students have really done a great job.
So Matt, I have a question for you regarding a safety concern. Is the new procedure confusing because you don't have enough signage, or is it that does it seem to be a little bit more delay and people are not being patient enough? I mean, is there something we can do with some increased signage?
To be honest, it's the patience. I mean, I the first day of school, I was out there at 6:30, hammering stakes into the ground with all kinds of signage down School Street. We put out cones to prevent cars from going in and out of where the buses now go. We've had to speak to parents ignoring the cones. We've had parents kind of cut in and out of other parents who are following the rules. And then I have stationed parents throughout the entire area from the front of the school all the way to the rear of the school where the actual drop-off and pickup zone is. And, our staff who observed parents not following the new procedures, the parents often get very snippy and some have even, yelled at our staff. So, like I said, we want our students to be safe. We want our drop-off and pickup procedures to ensure that our students are safe. And again, if we all work together to accomplish that, those procedures will take place in a very, timely manner. Even since the first day of school, we've tremendously reduced the minutes in drop-off and pickup.
Tim?
Matt, have your concerns on the safety been communicated with the school resource officer?
Yeah, we actually had an officer from the Farmington Police, not Officer Webster, but another day officer. He was there the first 3 days of school last week to help us, especially with the parking lot drop-off, because then all those students have to cross the road and then walk up the hill to the rear of the school. One morning he did have to leave for a call. So Giselle, Mrs. Palmer, and I have been talking about, seeing if possibly we could get help from the Farmington PD to extend that watch in the morning at least.
Okay, and just to pipe up, not at this point in time, but if the problems continue, please communicate with the board, because if parents aren't going to cooperate in the process, you know, we may have to get clearance from Department of Education, but in my opinion, if they're not going to play by the rules, they're not going to come into school. They're going to be remote. And we can put that message out there, and hopefully the people comply with it. But if it doesn't get fixed, let us know, and we'll set policy to make sure it is fixed.
Yeah, and
Appreciate that. I mean, hopefully again, our number one goal is to work together. You know, I held various parent orientations, been very, straightforward and upfront and specific with the new procedures and protocols. So, hopefully we can just make this work and have everybody understand, that these specific procedures are in place for ultimately the safety of all of our students.
okay, well, yeah, please keep us updated on that.
Thank you.
Hi, Paul Roberts.
Hi, Paul.
Farmington High School. And last but not least, I can't, many of the things that, Mr. Castanway and Blake McGurty have said ring true also at the high school. Since Wednesday, we've seen a tremendous increase in the number of people that are filling out the questionnaire. The morning is going much smoother than it was at the beginning. Want to compliment basically really the staff and the students for basically being patient and abiding. Most everybody abiding by what the guidelines are that we've set out. I'm also very proud of a number of staff who, when we've come into any sort of small glitches, how people have kind of pulled together and come up with a solution that seems to work. And so, I'm very thankful to be working with them. And I'm also very, very pleased that, just how well everybody seems to understand that it is all hands on deck. And so people are rising up to that challenge, including staff and students. Beyond that, I would just echo what the other two principals have said. So I don't know. I guess I don't seem to need repeating what they're saying, because I'm seeing a lot of the same things at the high school.
Good. Yeah, please keep us up to date, and especially if you see an issue that needs to have us address it.
Oh, certainly. And also just echo kind of what Mr. Castanway was saying is, the Farmington PD has been, really listened to the ideas that I've had before school started. We took a walk around the school, kind of outlining, because, Valley View and the high school basically share the same road. And so, we kind of laid out what Mr. McGurty's plan was and what my plans were. And basically, got the input from the police department also. I believe Captain Orlando on the first few days was down at the end of Thayer Drive and Spring Street, just to help kind of keep cars coming out of Thayer Drive and back onto Spring Street, keeping that moving. So, yeah, I definitely will. And I also just want to make sure you all understand that I've had a clear line of communication also with the police department.
Good. Glad to hear it.
Paul, I'll echo that your morning routine has been amazing, especially the coordination between the two schools. Traffic is, run real well. Question I have is probably not the question first week into school, but do we have a goal on the accreditation committee at the high school? And is there problems due to COVID-19 that's going to delay that process?
Very good question. Ms. Farley and I really haven't had the opportunity to sit down with her. I'm going to be scheduling a meeting shortly with her just so we can review the process. I know that I believe December 7th is when there's going to be a virtual visitation by NEASP. And, and I have several questions after getting through all the documents that I just want to take up with them. And it's there on my list. It's rising to the top.
Okay.
But we do have that date, and right now they've rearranged things so it is a virtual visitation. which for us will also help with the budget impact because a virtual visitation doesn't require a hotel stay. So that will help us a little bit.
We also have a change in staff, correct? That's
We
going to
do.
affect the committee,
So it will affect the committee somewhat. We are working on that piece, and then we're going to have to see what the visitation looks like.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to thank staff for giving us an update. Somebody else?
No, that was Paul saying you're welcome.
Okay, thanks, Paul. I do have one last thing that was actually here at the last meeting. We have a letter from Christina Bartlett from the Hampshire School Board Association. They're now accepting submissions for the annual delegate assembly. And I guess they're looking for potentially one of us being a delegate, and also looking for proposed resolutions that we may want to propose.
Yes.
Maybe Ruth Ellen can speak to this a little bit more informed than I can.
Each year, the delegate assembly comes together, looks at resolutions that are put forward by school boards from all over the state. In the past, one of the resolutions has dealt with voting procedures in schools and how that impacts the ability to continue instruction on those days. Now that we have remote as an option, it does shift that somewhat. But there have been a number of different things, suggestions around what might need to change for legislation that the NHSBA can then lobby on behalf. So there's a number of pieces there. You're not required to bring forth a resolution, and typically before the convention, there is a publishing of the resolutions that are on the table so that as a board, you can get together and kind of send your delegate, here's what we're in favor of and what we're not so much behind.
So the deadline for submitting proposals is Friday, November 6th. So that list of proposals coming back to us will be after that?
Typically, it's after that, yes.
And then they get voted on?
By the delegates at the assembly.
And what is the time frame of their voting?
It's usually, Stan has been a delegate. I believe it's at the assembly that the voting takes place, but he could probably jump into that better.
Yes, we go through the resolutions and vote on them at the assembly.
So do we have a need, we need to appoint somebody, or it's an option?
It's good to have a delegate on behalf of the board representing. I don't know that it's an absolute requirement. If someone doesn't go, there are no public floggings, but they do look for representation, and again, the resolutions are up to the board.
Yeah, so if somebody's interested in being a representative of this board, please speak up. Maybe we can also put this on the folder, and then maybe we'll bring it up at the next meeting to see if anybody wants to volunteer.
I can do that.
I've been a delegate in the past, and I don't mind doing it again, so if nobody else is interested, I'll be happy to go.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, and like I said, we'll put it out there at the meeting and have it on the next week's agenda, so we can resolve it. At this point, do we have any other new business or things for our public portion of this meeting? Not hearing any, I'll make a motion to go into non-public session 1 under RSA 91A:3(2)J for negotiations.
Second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
I want to thank everybody for attending the meeting and wish everyone a good night.
Thank you.